Ever notice how one comment can ruin your entire day? Here's the 90-second rule. You know that feeling when a single remark flips your mood for the entire day? Perhaps a comment from a colleague, a look from your partner, or a text that sets you off. It feels like you're stuck in it. But here's what most people don't realize. That feeling should actually disappear after 90 seconds, unless you're the one keeping it alive. Welcome to Psyche Milo, where we unpack these hidden patterns. Subscribe to catch insights that help you understand yourself and your relationships better. Neuroscience reveals that stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol take roughly 90 seconds to break down in your body. Yet we stay angry, hurt, or tense because we keep retelling the internal story. We rehearse what we should have said. We replay how unfair the situation was. With every repetition, we're pouring fresh fuel on the fire. Imagine your smoke alarm goes off because you've burnt the toast slightly. Normally, you'd open a window to let the smoke clear. But what do we do emotionally? We don't just let the alarm ring. We put another pan on the hob. Next time someone cuts you up in traffic or your boss makes a snide remark, watch closely. The first wave in your body. Racing heart, tension, heat. That's your 90 seconds. After that, it's not your body deciding whether you stay stuck in the anger. It's your thoughts. The myth of the buttons. We all know the phrase, "they pushed my buttons." But in truth, there are no secret buttons others can press in us. What we experience as buttons are nothing more than our tender spots. Old wounds, unhealed experiences, or values that matter deeply to us. When a sarcastic comment throws you off balance, it's rarely just about the situation in the here and now. Often, the tone reminds us of something from the past, perhaps a critical parent's voice or a feeling of rejection we've carried for ages. The other person doesn't trigger the emotion afresh. They touch something already present in us. This sounds exhausting at first, but there's tremendous opportunity in it. Because every person who touches your tender spots shows you where healing is still possible within you. Instead of immediately going on the attack or defense, you can ask yourself, what's this really about? Perhaps it's less about the colleague criticizing you and more about your need to be seen and valued. When you recognize this mechanism, your role changes. You're no longer a plaything of external triggers. You can consciously choose how you respond. Your feelings aren't the result of what others do. They're mirrors of your internal themes. Once you've seen through this myth, you reclaim your autonomy. Others can only trigger you when they touch a tender spot that's still raw in you. And that's precisely the invitation. To look, to heal, and to take back power over your inner world. The second layer of emotions. What anger really wants to show you. Many people believe anger is a clear, simple emotion. But usually it's just the surface, a shield covering deeper, more vulnerable feelings. Beneath anger often lie pain, fear, disappointment, or the feeling of not being seen. When someone criticizes you and you react sharply, there's often a wish for recognition underneath. Or your partner forgets something important and you get loud. But beneath the anger sits the quiet question, do I really matter to you? This is the second layer of emotions. Anger shows you where your needs, values, and old wounds lie. It's like a guard dog barking the moment something threatening appears. But the guard dog isn't the problem. It's just alerting you that something inside needs protecting or seeing. The fascinating thing is anger is a messenger. It shows you what matters deeply to you. Perhaps it signals you need respect when someone belittles you, or that you're seeking closeness and reliability when someone lets you down. Sometimes it even draws attention to old wounds, like feeling overlooked or unheard as a child. If you stay only in the anger, you create distance. You shout, withdraw, or make accusations, and the other person responds defensively. But if you pause and recognize the actual feeling, connection emerges. I feel overlooked opens a door. You never think about me slams it shut. Anger separates. Vulnerability connects. Anger doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to show you where to look more carefully. It's a signal that a part of you needs attention, care, and perhaps a bit of healing. When you begin decoding your anger's messages, you stop seeing it as the enemy. It becomes a signpost into your depths and an opportunity to make relationships more honest and alive. The moment of choice, your hidden freedom. There's a moment in our experience that most people miss, yet it determines the quality of our lives. It's the small gap between what happens to us and how we respond to it. Scarcely anyone notices it consciously, yet it's there. In precisely this tiny pause lies your freedom. A trigger hits you. Perhaps a dismissive comment, an unexpected accusation, or a remark that sets you off. Your body reacts instantly, racing pulse, stress hormones, tension. Everything in you wants to fire back automatically. But before you act, there's this fraction of a second when you can choose. Do I follow the impulse, or do I consciously select a different response? Viktor Frankl, who survived the inhuman conditions of a concentration camp, put it brilliantly. Even when we can't control circumstances, we always retain the freedom of how we meet them. This insight is more than philosophy. It's lived resilience. Picture an everyday situation. You open your inbox and find an email full of subtle digs. Your first impulse screams for a sharp reply. But in that space, you can pause and ask, how do I want to respond so I'm at peace with myself tomorrow? That single question changes everything. It pulls you out of autopilot into conscious choice. This is where your emotional strength lies. As long as you only react to triggers, you're like a ball being batted about. But when you recognize and use this space, you become the player directing the game. It's the ability to stop being merely a product of your circumstances and become an active shaper of your inner world. We all know people who seem unshakable no matter how chaotic things get around them. Their secret isn't innate composure. It's the conscious use of this decision moment. And the encouraging part? This ability lives in every one of us. It grows each time you pause, breathe, and choose instead of reacting blindly. Become the inner observer. Imagine you could observe your feelings like a weather phenomenon. Sometimes clouds roll in, sometimes a storm sweeps through. But you're not the storm. You're the one noticing it. Inside you exists a part that always remains calm. The inner observer. It notices what's happening in you without getting swept away. Instead of, I am angry, you can say, I'm experiencing anger right now. This small shift in perspective makes a massive difference. An example, your child rolls their eyes. Normally, you'd feel attacked immediately and react sharply. But when you activate your observer, you notice, irritation is rising in me. With that, you're no longer the emotion itself. You're the one observing it. From this space, you can freely decide how you respond. You don't have to fall automatically into old patterns. You can stay composed, ask a calm question, or diffuse the moment with humor. This is where inner freedom emerges. Perhaps you remember a situation when you stayed calm despite chaos. That was your observer in action. The difference is, from now on, you can switch it on consciously whenever you need it. The inner observer is like a safe harbor within yourself. Feelings come and go, but you no longer need to be ruled by them. You can see them, feel them, and still remain with yourself. Difficult people and the art of healthy boundaries. There are people who drive us up the wall, the colleague who constantly criticizes, the neighbor who dishes out subtle digs, the friend who keeps complaining about the same problems without changing anything. Normally, we see them as disruptions, burdens in our daily lives. But what if these people are actually something entirely different? What if they're trainers, not for our muscles, but for our emotional strength? This perspective changes everything. Every difficult person holds up a mirror. They show you exactly the spot where you can still grow internally. Your controlling boss, for instance, challenges you to stay calm and develop self-confidence. The nitpicking neighbor schools you in the art of setting boundaries clearly and respectfully. Just as a fitness trainer makes you stronger with grueling exercises, these encounters build your emotional resilience. Instead of feeling like a victim of their moods, you can begin seeing yourself as a student. Ask yourself, what skill is this person trying to teach me right now? Patience, self-assurance, steadfastness. Suddenly, an exhausting encounter becomes a training session, a chance to expand your inner strength. But growth alone isn't enough. So you don't end up exhausted or burnt out, you need a second element, healthy boundaries. Many people confuse boundaries with walls, but walls shut everything out, even the good. Boundaries, on the other hand, are like a gate, and you're the gatekeeper. You decide what gets in and what must stay outside. Imagine someone's shouting at you. A healthy boundary would be to say, "I understand you're angry, but I'll only continue this conversation when we're both calmer." That's not aggressive, it's clear. Or your friend endlessly moans about the same problems. You could say lovingly but firmly, "I'll listen, but only if we also talk about solutions." That way, you protect your energy without severing the relationship. Boundaries aren't cold or dismissive. On the contrary, they make it possible to remain present and helpful long-term, because you can only give to others when your own battery isn't empty. Healthy boundaries preserve your strength and give you the freedom to stay genuine and caring in relationships. So next time you deal with a difficult person, remember, they could be your emotional trainer, and you always have the right to guard your gate. In this combination, training through friction and protection through boundaries lies a key to emotional freedom. Strategic pauses and the art of rewriting your story. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't to fight, but to consciously step back. There's a difference between fleeing and taking a strategic timeout. Fleeing makes you weaker. A conscious withdrawal makes you stronger because it gives your nervous system time to settle, and your mind the chance to think clearly again. Imagine your partner brings up a sensitive topic precisely when you're shattered from the workday. Instead of snapping or shutting down, you could say, "This conversation matters to me, but I'm not in the right headspace. Let's talk about it properly later." That honors both the relationship and your own boundaries. 5 minutes of distance can often save more than hours of discussions held in the heat of the moment. A timeout isn't weakness, it's self-leadership. Everyone knows situations where they said words in the heat of battle that were hard to take back later. A small pause would have changed everything. But there's something else that helps us avoid falling into the same traps repeatedly. Knowing our triggers. Emotional triggers are rarely random. They follow patterns. Perhaps you feel defensive when someone speaks in a tone reminding you of your critical parents. Or you immediately bristle when someone interrupts you because it unconsciously recalls earlier situations when you weren't heard. When you begin mapping your triggers, much becomes clearer. You can keep a small diary. Who triggered me? What exactly was said or done? What does it remind me of? After a week, you'll spot patterns. This awareness removes the element of surprise from your reactions. You recognize the minefields early and can consciously choose a different step. Besides triggers, there's another challenge: not making other people's problems your own. Compassionate distance means being there for someone without carrying their drama. You can say, "I see you're struggling and I'll support you, but I can't shoulder everything." That's not a loss of love. It's self-protection so you remain helpful long-term. Example: a friend going through a breakup rings daily. Set a kind boundary. "I'm completely available twice a week. On other days, let's do something that's good for us both." That way, you stay present without burning out. Burnt-out helpers serve no one. A second key is the story you tell yourself. We rarely experience reality itself, but our interpretation of it. Imagine your boss sends you a very brief, curt email. In one story you think, "He despises my work." That creates fear and defensiveness. In another story you tell yourself, "He's stressed and wants to give me quick feedback." That sparks curiosity and openness. It's the same situation, yet it feels completely different. Once you recognize you can consciously choose your story, you stop being a victim of your interpretations. You become the architect of your inner experience. Integration happens through small, consistent steps. Choose one technique for a week, like internally naming a trigger. "I notice anger, nothing more." This mini pause trains your nervous system like a muscle. People who seem composed weren't born different. They've practiced. You can too. Ask yourself, who would you be if difficult people no longer had access to your inner peace? That version of you exists, and it becomes more visible with every clear stop, every new story, and every gentle boundary you set.